everyone. I welcome you all to this digital classroom for the subject control systems. In the previous lecture, we solved few problems related to time domain specifications. And today, we are going to get introduced to PI, PD and PID controllers. So before starting with PI, PD and PID controllers, let us solve with one simple example problem related to time domain specification, and let's continue with the PID controllers. So you can make a note of this question. A system given in the figure is a unity feedback system with minor feedback loop. Number 1, in the absence of derivative feedback A is equal to 0, determine the damping ratio and undamped natural frequency. Number 2, determine the constant A which will increase the damping ratio to 0.7. Number 3, find the overshoot in both the cases. Number 4, what is the steady state error to unit ramp input for the value of A? This is a problem which is having the combination of steady state error as well as the time domain specification. So as we are concluding with the problems related to time domain specification, with respect to module 3, I wanted you to convey the combination of a problem related to steady state error as well as the time domain specification. As we have done steady state error constants and the steady state error constant related problem separately, and we have done with time domain specification problem separately, it doesn't mean that the question will not appear with the combination of both. So here is an example of such type of question, which is a combination of time domain specification as well as the steady state error. You can look into the question carefully. The first question is here, the absence of the derivative feedback, that is A is equal to 0, and we have to determine the damping ratio and undamped natural frequency, that is zeta and omega n, to be calculated in the absence of A is equal to 0. So just imagine that the derivative feedback is not present and we have to calculate for zeta and omega n. So the first case, when A is equal to 0, g of s is given in the block. We can identify g of s. G of s is equal to 8 divided by s into s plus 2. And as it is a negative unity feedback, h of s is equal to 1. So now let us solve this problem. So we know the closed loop transfer function is given by g of s divided by 1 plus g of s into h of s. So let us substitute for g of s. It is given in the question g of s is equal to 8 divided by s into s plus 2. Let us substitute here in the closed loop transfer function. And after substitution and simplification, we obtain the closed loop transfer function as 8 divided by a square plus 2s plus 8. Now you have obtained the closed loop transfer function. We have to compare the denominator of the closed loop transfer function equated to 0, and we call it as a characteristic equation. And we have to compare it with the standard characteristic equation of a second order system, which is given by a square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square is equal to 0. So if you compare both, 2 zeta omega n is equal to 2 and omega n square is equal to 8. So omega n will be equal to square root of 8 radian per second. And substitute for omega n in this expression 2 zeta omega n, and we can obtain for zeta as 0.3535. Done with the first case, that is in the absence of the derivative feedback, we have calculated the closed loop transfer function making use of h of s is equal to 1, which has been identified here as unity feedback, and g of s is given in the block as 8 divided by s into s plus 2. So let us move on to the next case. We have to determine constant A which will increase the damping ratio to 0.7. So given zeta is equal to 0.7 with the presence of the derivative feedback, and we have to calculate for the constant A. From this, from the block, if we simplify the first derivative feedback block, assuming 8 by s into s plus 2 as g1 of s and a s as h1 of s, we know to simplify this block, that is g1 of s divided by 1 plus g1 of s into h1 of s. So once after simplification, again we have to still more simplify the next block, which we have a negative feedback h of s is equal to 1. Further simplification, we can obtain the closed loop transfer function as 8 divided by a square plus s into 2 plus 8a plus 8. So now we have obtained the closed loop transfer function. So now the question is to find the constant a. So given as zeta, to compare the denominator of the closed loop transfer function equals to 0 with the characteristic equation s square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. Here in this case, if you compare both, omega n square is equal to 8 and 2 zeta omega n is equal to 2 plus 8a. Zeta is given in the question, so let us substitute for zeta as 0.7 and we know omega is equal to square root of 8. If you substitute, we can get the value of a as 0.2449 for given zeta is equal to 0.7. So I have done with the second case. Moving on to the third case, find the overshoot in both the cases. So without the derivative factor, we have to find the overshoot, and with the presence of the derivative factor, we have to calculate the overshoot. Two cases. So first we have to write the formula for maximum peak overshoot, MP given by e to the power of minus pi zeta divided by square root of 1 minus zeta square into 100. And if you substitute for a is equal to 0, zeta is equal to 0.3535, which we derived in the previous slide. And if you substitute for zeta in this expression, we have obtained MP is equal to 30.507%. And in the presence of a, for a is equal to 0.2449, if you substitute for zeta as 0.7, which we have obtained in the second case, now the maximum peak overshoot is equal to 4.59%. Thus, the derivative feedback reduces MP, keeping omega n same. Thus, omega n remains the same, square root of 8, whereas we could able to see the reduction in the value of MP from 30.507 to 4.59%. So once after introducing the derivative feedback with a is equal to 0.2449, we could able to see the reduction of maximum peak overshoot. From 30.5, it has reduced to 4.59. So we can relate. We hope you could able to remember the response graph is shown here, the maximum peak overshoot. Drawback that the maximum peak overshoot should not be very high. We should maintain a proper limited level in such a way that it settles down very faster and reaches its settling time and with a very lesser steady state error. So in this case, it is very clear that if you introduce a derivative feedback, the peak overshoot is getting reduced. We can make a note of it. What is the steady state error to unit ramp input for the value of A? I have been asked to calculate the steady state error ESS subjected to input as unit ramp. A is equal to 0.2449. We know that G of S into H of S is equal to 8 divided by S into S plus 2 plus 8A. That is 8 divided by S into S plus 3.9592. That is, in the presence of the derivative factor, we have taken G of S, which has been obtained here. So if we substitute for A is equal to 0.2449 for this expression, we get the simplified G of S as 8 divided by S into S plus 3.9592. So now we know that the steady state error, as it is subjected to unit ramp input, we have to take the velocity error constant Kv, which is given by limit s tends to 0, S into G of S into H of S. Here H of S is equal to 1. So once after substitution of G of S in this expression as limit s tends to 0, substitute for S tends to 0, and we can obtain the velocity error constant equal to 2.02. And we know that the steady state error subjected to unit ramp input is given by A divided by Kv. As it is unit ramp, A will be equal to 1. And Kv we have obtained now as 2.02. So ASS will be equal to 1 by 2.02, which is 0.4949. So we have obtained the expression for ESS also. This problem is again a very important university question. It's a combination of the time domain specifications as well as the steady state error. So before starting with the next topic, which is PID controllers, first let me give you the necessity for this PID controllers. So for a given step input R of t, its response is given by C of t, in which we have two components, transient response and the steady state response. We know that the transient response is the time taken to achieve the final value, and steady state response is that part of the time response which remains after complete transient vanishes from the system output. A good time response is one which has a lesser rise time. We know that the rise time is the time at which the response reaches its final value for the first time. So this is the first time it is trying to reach the final value, and we call it as rise time TR. And a good response should have a very lesser rise time, which means that in a very short duration it should reaches its final value for the first attempt. And also it should have a very less overshoot. We know that the peak time is the time at which the response reaches its peak value in magnitude compared to rest of all the cases. And we have the parameter maximum peak overshoot MP, and the maximum peak overshoot should be maintained as less as possible. That is, once after reaching its final value for the first attempt, it should not be overshooted to a very high value, because it takes so much of time to settle down and again come back to its final state. And the most important condition is it should have a very less settling time, TS. So this is the time taken to settle, and this settling time should be very less as possible, so that I can say that it is a good time response. And finally, it should have a very small steady state error ESS. So these are the required condition for a very good time response. But most of the time we will not obtain a very good time response. Then what you're supposed to do for the next step? So there is a reason why I have given this time response analysis right now, and the answer can be defined by the controller. So let us go on to the controllers. So introduction to PI, PD and PID controller. A controller is a device which, when introduced in feedback or forward path of a system, controls the steady state and the transient response as per the requirement. So the main requirement is to control the steady state and the transient response. Just we have discussed about a good time response analysis. So making use of a controller which can be introduced either in feedback or in the forward path of the system, so that we can make some compromise by keeping the steady state error and the overshoot within the acceptable limit. So the PID controller is widely employed because it is very understandable and quite effective. One attraction of the PID controller is that all engineers understand the concept of differentiation and integration, so that they can implement the control systems even without the deep understanding of control theory. We have here four different types of controllers. Number one, proportional to the signal P controller, proportional plus integral action of the signal P plus I controller, and proportional plus derivative action of the signal P plus D controller, and proportional plus integral plus derivative action of the signal, that is PID controller. Let us discuss the effect of each of the PID parameters on the dynamics of the control systems. And let me explain how to use this PID controller to improve the system performance. First controller is proportional controller. In most of the practical system, controller output is proportional to error generated. We have taken a controller and the controller output is proportional to the error generated. And we call this mechanism as P-type error mechanism. So let us have a look at how the proportional controller works in a closed loop control system. So second order system with g of s is equal to omega n square divided by s into s plus 2 zeta omega n. We know that g of s into h of s is equal to omega n square divided by s into s plus 2 zeta omega n, as the negative feedback h of s is equal to 1. So now, if you calculate the closed loop transfer function C of s by R of s, substituting for G of s in the formula G of s divided by 1 plus G of s into H of s, we can obtain the closed loop transfer function of the second order system omega n square divided by s square plus 2 zeta omega n s plus omega n square. So now we have obtained the closed loop transfer function. So once after obtaining the closed loop transfer function, let us calculate for the position error constant Kp. So limit s tends to 0 g of s. Let us substitute for g of s and we can obtain the position error constant. If you substitute for s tends to 0, Kp reaches infinity. And for velocity error constant, the formula is limit s tends to 0 s into g of s. So if you substitute for g of s again in this expression, we can obtain for s tends to 0 as 1s and 1s will get cancelled out, and if you substitute s is equal to 0, we can obtain omega n square divided by 2 zeta omega n, in which one term of omega will get cancelled out. So kv will be equal to omega n divided by 2 zeta. So we have obtained for kp as well as kv. So here it is very clear, by increasing kv increases the system gain and the steady state error can be reduced. But due to increase in high gain, it leads to instability of the system. Already we have discussed about the stability with respect to the derivations which we have derived for the steady state error constant in the previous lectures. And again, I wanted you to remind here that we cannot just like that increase kV. By increasing system gain, it leads to instability of the system. So once after connecting a proportional controller in the forward path of a second order system, let us see how does the response looks like through MATLAB. So MATLAB is a high level language and interactive environment that enables you to perform computationally intensive tasks very faster. MATLAB is an interactive interpreted language that is designed for fast numerical matrix calculation. So let us look at this MATLAB environment in which we have three windows. This window which displays all the defined variables, a command window to execute the commands in the MATLAB environment, and a command history which displays the record of the commands used. So for a proportional controller, let us take an example as g of s is equal to 1 by s square plus 10s plus 20. Now to feed this open loop transfer function into MATLAB, we know that MATLAB is a matrix laboratory. So the numerator is fed here and stored here as num of 1. As the numerator term has 1, it is stored in num. And then we have 1, 10, a square coefficient is 1, s coefficient is 10, and we have the constant is 20. So we have defined here den is equal to 1, 10, 1 space 10 space 20. Then we have a step of num comma den. The step input can be described as a change in the input from 0 to a final value at time t is equal to 0. By default, this step command performs a unit step. That is, input goes to 0 to 1 at time t is equal to 0, and the basic syntax we can call it as step of SYS, which is specific for a linear time invariant system. So it is not necessary to calculate the transfer function, then apply partial fraction, then take the inverse Laplace transform and obtain the response C of t, and then substitute few values for zeta and omega n and plotting the graph. It takes directly the syntax. So it is a very useful command. in which you could be able to see the response very easily. And similarly, once after introducing the proportional controller k, you could be able to see the change here. In the numerator, it is k after introducing the proportional controller. And we have a change in the increase in the constant in the denominator also by 20 plus k. That is, after introducing the proportional controller, you could be able to see the effect in this case. So we have taken an example here, k is equal to 300. And again, I wanted to display the response through this MATLAB. So num, in the numerator I have k, and in the denominator S square coefficient is 1, S coefficient is 10, and the constant is 20 plus k. So you know in MATLAB it is stored in the form of a matrix. So one row and we have 3 columns here. 1, 10, 20 plus k elements are found here. So now let me try this through MATLAB. I have clicked on this icon, MATLAB. We could able to see here the 3 windows, command window, workspace, and file editor, which define your function. So now let us try with the first example. Num equal to 1, then equal to 1, 10, 20, that is a square plus 10s plus 20, and in numerator we had 1. Then the command step of num comma den. Now we could able to see the response. That is a step response for open loop. You could able to see the response. So the graph clearly indicates the response for a second order system subjected to init step. Now let us try for the second case in which we have introduced a proportional controller. So we have introduced a proportional controller. First let me substitute for k is equal to 100. Then let me increase the value of k and show you the difference. So k is equal to 100. So num equal to k. Then equal to, we have a square plus 10s plus 20 plus k. As we have included the proportional controller k, here you could able to see it has been introduced in the numerator as k, and in the denominator the constant value has get increased 20 plus k. Then now let us look into the response of this system once after introducing the proportional controller. So step of num comma den. Num and den represents the numerator and the denominator of the given transfer function. So now you could able to see the response. When k is equal to 100, we could able to see the rise time exactly at this point around 0.2, and we could able to see a overshoot from 0.8 to 1. We can make a note of it so that we can have a comparison when k get increased to 300. So now let me try for k is equal to 300, which means I am increasing the value of the proportional controller k, and let us look into the response. How does it looks like? So num equal to k, then equal to a square plus 10s plus 20 plus k, step of num comma den. Now you could able to see the response C of t for k is equal to 300. Now compared to the previous case when k is equal to 100 and now k increased to 300, we could able to see that the rise time decreases. In the first case, we could able to see the rise time exactly at 0.2, whereas in this case, we could able to see the decrease in the rise time as well as, but in the other side, the overshoot has been increased from the final value. It has been overshooted to a very high value, whereas when k is equal to 100, the overshoot was lesser, but when you keep on increasing the k, the overshoot has been increased. And here we could able to see the decrease in the steady state error compared to the previous case. So let us look into the response when k is equal to 100 in comparison with k is equal to 300. It is very clear that the proportional controller reduces the rise time and increases the overshoot, and it is also reduces the steady state error. When k is equal to 100, the rise time is around 0.2, and when we increase the proportional controller from k is equal to 100 to k is equal to 300, we could able to see the reduction in the rise time. But on the other side, we could able to see that the peak overshoot has been increased. In comparison with the open loop step response, which has been given with the rise time of 1.5 second and a settling time of 1.5 second, the proportional controller has reduced the steady state error as well as the rise time. So, as a summary, the proportional controller which we have introduced in the forward path, we have the error signal E of t, and hence the output of this controller will be proportional to the error signal, and we have represented the proportional constant k is equal to 1 in this case, and we have two blocks in series, so we can take the product of both. Hence we can obtain g of s as omega n square divided by s into s plus 2 zeta omega n, and we have calculated the closed loop transfer function, and we related with the position error constant and the velocity error constant. And this controller can be also used in the feedback path. And still we have few more criteria like reduced overshoot and reduced settling times, which gives a very good response. So this proportional controller should be combined with a derivative or an integral action, which leads to proportional plus integral controller, proportional plus derivative controller, and proportional plus integral plus derivative controllers for the system performance. So let us have a look at the response. How does it looks like once after introducing the proportional controller? It has been taken from the reference Automation Forum. It's an animated video which clearly shows you once after introducing the proportional error constant. From this video, we could able to visualize that with respect to increase in proportional constant, we could able to see a decrease in rise time as well as the steady state error is also reducing. So in the next lecture, let us discuss about proportional integral controller, proportional derivative controller, and proportional integral derivative controllers. Thank you.